The stars had always shone brightly over the Velith Dominion, from the highest towers of the capital city to the sprawling orbital stations. The light of distant suns reflected the pride of a civilization that had ruled the galaxy for centuries. At the center of this empire sat Empress Zelira, a leader of elegance and power, who carried the weight of her people like a crown forged from starlight. She was admired, feared, and respected across hundreds of worlds, yet even the strongest empires can crumble when trust is broken. The day began like any other. Zelira moved through her palace corridors, her long robes brushing against the polished floors. Servants bowed and whispered greetings, and the council of ministers awaited her in the great hall. Her advisors, experts in diplomacy, war, and strategy, had served her faithfully for decades. Or so she believed, but that faith, she would soon learn, was fragile. Without warning, alarms blared across the palace. Red lights flashed, and the heavy doors of the great hall slammed shut with a mechanical roar. Soldiers rushed past her, their faces pale. The Empress's heart thumped in sudden alarm. Something was wrong, something terrible. Her most trusted general, Varkos, appeared in the doorway. His usual stern expression twisted with panic. "Your Majesty," he said, voice tight, "we have been betrayed. The council, they have sided with the insurgents." Zelira's eyes widened. "What? That is impossible. My council would never." But before she could finish, the doors to the great hall shattered. Figures clad in dark armor stormed in, their weapons glowing with energy. Soldiers who were meant to protect the Empress turned their weapons away from the attackers. Betrayal was no longer a possibility, it was reality. Chaos erupted. Screams filled the hall, and the sound of blaster fire echoed through the palace. The Empress barely had time to react before a violent strike sent her sprawling across the floor. Pain shot through her shoulder, but she forced herself to rise. The Velith Empire, the empire she had dedicated her life to protecting, was crumbling around her. Through the smoke and confusion, she saw them, the counselors who had served beside her for decades. They fled without hesitation, leaving her defenseless. Generals turned their backs. Even some of her personal guards dropped their weapons and ran. Zelira felt her chest tighten with a cold, bitter realization she was completely alone. Then, amidst the chaos, she saw him, a human soldier, standing firm near the entrance, holding his rifle with careful precision. And like everyone else, he did not flee. His uniform was simple and practical, not adorned with the medals or insignia of the Velith military. But there was something in his stance that caught her attention, a determination she had not expected to see from a human. "Step aside," she ordered, though her voice wavered. The soldier looked at her calmly, eyes unwavering. "I'm not leaving," he said. His tone was quiet, but it carried weight. "You're not alone while I'm here." Zelira stared at him, disbelief and suspicion warring inside her. "Who are you? Why would you help me?" "I'm Sergeant Marcus Hale," he replied simply. "I serve no council, no faction, but I don't leave people behind." The words struck something deep inside her, something she had never heard from any of her own people. Loyalty, commitment. In a world where everyone abandoned her, this human soldier was standing by her side. Zelira barely had time to respond before the insurgents pressed closer. Marcus moved with practiced efficiency, guiding her behind the shattered pillars of the great hall. He blocked her from incoming fire with his body, all while signaling to her to follow him toward a side exit. "Quickly," he said. "We don't have much time." Despite the pain in her shoulder, she obeyed, stumbling after him through the smoke-filled corridors. Her mind raced. She had survived countless battles and had faced enemies from distant star systems. But this betrayal from within her own empire was something she had never imagined. The weight of solitude pressed on her, but Marcus's presence, calm and steady, gave her a strange sense of hope. They reached a maintenance hatch that led to the lower levels of the palace. Marcus pried it open and gestured for her to go first. Zelira hesitated, her pride urging her to face her enemies, but survival instincts won. She slipped inside, following the human into the narrow tunnels beneath the capital. For hours, they moved in silence, navigating the labyrinthine passages. The distant sounds of alarms and battle faded into echoes, replaced by the quiet hum of emergency systems. Zelira watched Marcus closely. Every step he took, every decision he made, seemed guided by a calm clarity she had never seen in the chaos of the palace above. Finally, they reached a small chamber, hidden from view and fortified against intruders. Marcus closed the door behind them and activated a security panel that sealed it. He turned to her, his expression serious. "You're safe here. For now," he said. Zelira sank to the floor, exhaustion and shock overwhelming her. She looked at the human soldier and realized something extraordinary. In the midst of total abandonment, he had not wavered. Every principle she had believed about loyalty, honor, and duty now had a new face, a human face. "I don't understand," she said softly. Why me?" Marcus shrugged lightly, though there was no arrogance in his gesture. "Because someone has to. Because it's the right thing to do. Even when everyone else runs, you don't turn your back on people who need help. That's how humans see the world." Zelira studied him, her mind turning over his words. She had always thought of humans as fragile, young, and untested in the ways of empire and war. But this man, small in stature compared to the towering Velith soldiers, held a strength she had never expected. Not the strength of weapons or armies, but the strength of principle. For the first time since the betrayal, a spark of hope flickered in her chest. Perhaps not all was lost. Perhaps even in the darkest moments, there was a chance to survive. "Can I trust you?" she asked quietly. "You can," Marcus said without hesitation. "I'll keep you alive. We'll get through this together." Zelira nodded slowly. Though the weight of her situation was not gone, she had lost her throne, her council, and the loyalty of her people. But in the dim light of the hidden chamber, she found something she had almost forgotten, someone who would not abandon her. Hours passed, and the sounds of the rebellion faded into the distance. Marcus checked the chamber's security systems while Zelira tended to her wound as best as she could. They spoke little, but a silent understanding grew between them. Marcus did not ask for reward or recognition. Zelira did not demand obedience. They simply existed in the quiet aftermath of chaos, finding strength in each other's presence. Outside, the stars continued to shine. The Velith Dominion might have fallen, but somewhere in the darkness, a new hope was kindling. And as Zelira looked at the human soldier who had chosen to stay when all others fled, she realized that perhaps this unexpected alliance was the first step toward reclaiming what had been lost. For in the galaxy, survival was not just about power or armies, it was about trust, loyalty, and the courage to stand when everyone else turned away. And in that truth, Zelira saw the faintest glimmer of a future she had not yet dared to imagine. The hidden chamber was quiet now, save for the soft hum of emergency lights and the occasional creak of the palace settling under its own weight. Empress Zelira sat against the cold wall, her shoulder wrapped in makeshift bandages, her mind racing with questions. Outside, the rebellion raged, and the empire she had known for centuries had shattered in a single day. She felt small and powerless for the first time in her life. Yet, across the chamber, Sergeant Marcus Hale moved with calm purpose. He checked a small console, ensuring that no one could locate their hiding place. Every movement he made, precise and careful, gave her a sense of safety she had never felt before. "You'll be safe here for a while," Marcus said again, his voice steady. "But we can't stay forever. Eventually, someone will find us if we don't move." Zelira nodded, though her pride bristled at the thought of relying on a human soldier. She had ruled worlds, commanded fleets, and faced enemies with armies at her back. Yet now, it was this human, this stranger, who determined her survival. "I do not understand," she said, her voice quiet but firm. "You have nothing to gain by helping me. Why are you risking your life for someone who is already defeated?" Marcus turned to her, his eyes meeting hers. "Because it's the right thing to do. Even if everyone else leaves, some people still stand. You're not alone, and I don't leave people behind." Zelira stared at him. His words were simple, yet they carried a weight that none of her council had ever matched. Betrayal had poisoned her trust in everyone, But here was a human, standing firm, acting with courage even when it was not convenient or profitable. She swallowed, her throat dry. You speak of loyalty, honor. I thought humans were fragile, that you could not understand the burdens of ruling an empire. Marcus shrugged lightly. We're not perfect, but we do understand standing by someone who needs help. That's enough. For a long moment, Zelira said nothing. She wanted to argue, to insist that she could survive alone. But deep down, she knew she could not. The palace was no longer safe, the rebellion would not rest, and she had no army to defend herself. Her empire had abandoned her, and only this human soldier had chosen to stay. Finally, she nodded. Very well, I will trust you for now. But if we survive this, you must explain why humans do what they do. Marcus smiled faintly. Then I will explain everything on the way. They rested for a short time, conserving their energy and avoiding detection. Marcus taught Zelira how to move quietly through the tunnels, how to use old emergency systems to mask their presence, and how to avoid sensors and patrols. He spoke in simple, clear terms, not condescending, but practical. Zelira realized that his training as a soldier, disciplined and precise, gave him skills that even her most loyal Velith generals lacked. As night fell across the capital, the rebellion sounds faded, replaced by an eerie silence. The destruction above left the palace almost unrecognizable. Great halls once filled with light and life were now blackened and shattered. Corridors choked with debris, and statues toppled from their pedestals. It was a reminder of how quickly power could vanish, and how fragile even the greatest empires could be. Yet, Zelira did not feel despair as she might have in the past. Marcus's presence gave her a strange sense of hope, a feeling she had almost forgotten, that survival was possible even when everything seemed lost. After a time, Marcus spoke. We need to move soon. Staying here too long is dangerous. There are escape routes from the palace, old tunnels that lead to the docking bays. From there, we can reach a shuttle. Zelira hesitated. A shuttle? To where? Somewhere safe. Somewhere you can recover and plan your next move, Marcus replied. We can't reclaim the empire yet, but we can survive. Zelira considered this. She had always been taught that rulers should never flee, that fleeing was a sign of weakness. Yet, she also knew that survival was essential. If she fell here, the empire would be lost forever. And perhaps, with this human soldier, there was a chance to return stronger. Then we leave at first light, she said finally. I will follow your lead. The following hours were long and tense. Marcus prepared for their escape, gathering supplies, checking communications, and ensuring that the hidden chamber would remain undiscovered once they left. Zelira watched him, noticing small details, the careful way he checked each corridor, the way he adjusted his rifle without hesitation, the calm expression he maintained despite the danger all around them. It was unlike anything she had seen among her own people. Her generals would have argued, hesitated, or tried to claim authority. Marcus acted alone, decisively, without arrogance, without doubt, and without expectation of reward. When the time came, they moved through the tunnels under the cover of darkness. Zelira followed closely, relying on Marcus's guidance. Every step was cautious, every corner checked for ambushes. The rebel forces had not yet secured the lower levels, but they were close, and danger lurked around every turn. They reached the docking bay at last, a vast chamber that had once held dozens of ships. Now, most of the vessels were destroyed or commandeered by the rebels. But in a corner, hidden from sight, Marcus had found a small shuttle. This one will work, he said. It's not much, but it can get us out of orbit into a nearby safe system. Zelira nodded. The ship was modest, clearly built for utility rather than comfort, but it represented a lifeline. With Marcus's help, she climbed aboard, her movements careful to avoid aggravating her injured shoulder. Once inside, Marcus activated the shuttle. The engines hummed to life, and the craft lifted off from the ruined docking bay. Through the viewport, Zelira watched her palace shrink beneath them, the empire she had ruled slipping into shadows. A pang of loss struck her. but it was tempered by growing admiration for the human beside her. "Why do you do this?" she asked again, once the shuttle was clear of immediate danger. "Why risk everything for someone you barely know?" Marcus glanced at her, a small, wry smile on his face. "Because I can. Because someone has to. And because humans. We survive by sticking together. That's what makes us strong." Zelira considered this. For centuries, she had thought strength came from fleets, armies, and loyalty bought through fear or wealth. Yet here was a human, smaller, and weaker than most Velith soldiers, keeping her alive with nothing but his principles and courage. The journey through space was not easy. Marcus navigated through debris fields, avoiding patrols, and using obscure jump points to escape detection. Zelira assisted when she could, learning to operate the shuttle systems under his guidance. Ours turned into a long, tense day, and both of them grew weary. Yet, even in exhaustion, the trust between them deepened during a brief moment of calm. Zelira spoke. "I have never trusted so easily, or depended on anyone like this." Marcus nodded. "Trust is earned, but sometimes it's worth taking the risk. You survived today because we worked together, and tomorrow we'll survive again." The Empress looked out at the stars, the endless black dotted with distant suns. The galaxy that had once seemed secure now appeared vast, uncertain, and dangerous. But for the first time since the fall of her empire, she felt a sense of hope. Survival was possible, and with Marcus Hale by her side, she realized that even a human could show her a strength she had never known. Loyalty without expectation, courage without command, and determination without fear. The shuttle continued its journey through the darkness, carrying to unlikely allies, an Empress who had lost everything, and a human soldier who had chosen to stand when everyone else had turned away. And somewhere deep in the quiet, Zelira made a promise not just to herself, but to the man who had risked everything for her. A promise to survive, to endure, and perhaps, one day, to reclaim what had been lost for now. Though, survival was enough. And in the cold, endless expanse of space, a human soldier and an alien Empress learned the first lesson of a fragile but powerful alliance. Sometimes, the greatest strength comes not from armies or weapons, but from standing by someone when everyone else is left. The shuttle drifted silently through the vast blackness of space, stars glinting like tiny shards of glass against the darkness. Empress Zelira sat by the navigation console, her shoulders still sore from the palace attack. She watched the lights of distant planets and satellites pass by, feeling a mixture of awe and unease. Though she had once commanded fleets and explored distant systems, seeing the galaxy from this small shuttle brought a new perspective. Beside her, Sergeant Marcus Hale maintained focus on the controls. His eyes scanned every sensor, every blip on the screen. His fingers moved with precise rhythm, adjusting the shuttle's course, avoiding debris, and plotting a route that would keep them hidden from rebel patrols. Zelira realized that despite her empire's vast power, it was Marcus's skill, calm judgment, and determination that kept them alive. The first challenge came sooner than expected. A patrol of the rebel fleet, remnants of her own forces, appeared on their sensors. Zelira leaned forward, alarm flashing in her eyes. "Are they going to attack?" she asked. Marcus shook his head. "Not if we act quickly. Follow my lead." He adjusted the shuttle's trajectory, weaving through an asteroid field that hugged the edge of a nearby star system. The shuttle shuddered as it dodged massive chunks of rock, some of them easily large enough to crush the craft. Zelira gripped the console, white-knuckled, as Marcus guided them with calm precision. "Hold on," he warned, and the shuttle swung sharply through a narrow gap between two asteroids. The patrol ship attempted pursuit, but Marcus calculated each move carefully. By the time the rebels adjusted their course, the shuttle had vanished into the shadow of a nearby gas giant. Zelira exhaled slowly, her heart still racing. You saved us," she said, on her voice. Marcus glanced at her, expression calm but serious. "No, you saved us too. I can't do this alone. You need to make decisions, think ahead, and help when it matters. That's why we're alive, for the first time." Zellira felt a profound respect for humanity's resilience. Marcus was not the strongest or the most heavily armed, but he was clever, disciplined, and unyielding. In a galaxy where loyalty had failed her at every turn, he was the first being to act with consistency and courage. Hours passed as they navigated through dangerous sectors, avoiding rebel patrols and systems under heavy surveillance. Zellira tried to keep her mind sharp, assisting Marcus when she could, learning how to calculate evasive maneuvers and monitor life support systems. Despite the stress and danger, she found herself quietly admiring the human's ability to remain calm under pressure. Eventually, they reached a small, remote planet in an uncharted system. It was an unremarkable world, its surface covered in rocky plains and sparse vegetation, with no major settlements or spaceports. Marcus had chosen it for its seclusion, a temporary refuge where they could rest, repair the shuttle, and plan their next move. The landing was smooth, and the shuttle touched down on a flat plateau. Outside, the air was thin but breathable. Zellira stepped onto the ground cautiously, taking in the alien landscape. She had never felt so isolated, yet she was oddly comforted. For the first time in days, she felt safe, at least for the moment. Marcus joined her outside, checking the shuttle for damage. "We'll stay here until the immediate danger passes," he said. "Then we'll continue our journey. There are systems where loyalists might still exist, planets that haven't fallen to the rebels." Zellira nodded, scanning the barren horizon. "And if we are found?" she asked. "We adapt. We survive. That's what humans do," Marcus replied simply. Over the next several days, they lived in cautious isolation. They repaired the shuttle, rationed supplies, and planned their route. Zellira began to learn more about Marcus, asking questions about humanity, their ways, and their history. He spoke honestly and without arrogance, explaining how humans survived despite being a young species, how they valued loyalty, courage, and resilience above titles or power. Zellira listened intently. She had spent centuries believing that power and fleets defined strength. Yet Marcus showed her that true strength often came from principles and perseverance. His simple, steadfast loyalty had kept her alive, and she began to understand that this was the kind of courage her empire had lacked in its final days. One night, as they camped under the dim glow of the planet's twin moons, Zellira confided in him. "I have ruled worlds, commanded armies, and yet I was abandoned. Everyone I trusted turned away when I needed them most. Why is it that a human can do what my own people could not?" Marcus gazed at the stars, considering his words carefully. "Humans are not perfect. We make mistakes, but we believe in each other. We survive by standing together, by helping when it matters, even if it's dangerous. Maybe your people lost that, but not everyone has. And you have me now." Zellira felt a warmth she had not known in months. Here, in the silence of an alien world, she realized that trust and loyalty could still exist even in the darkest moments. And it was not tied to fear, power, or tradition. It was a choice, a principle that Marcus lived by every day. Their time on the planet also revealed another challenge. Marcus intercepted a transmission from a nearby system. It was a coded message, seemingly unimportant, but his trained eyes recognized the signature of a faction working behind the rebellion. The message hinted at a larger plot scheme to destabilize not just her planet, but multiple star systems. Zellira's mind raced. This is bigger than I imagined," she whispered. "The rebellion wasn't just about taking my throne. Someone else is behind this." Marcus nodded. "Exactly, and we need to figure out who. If we understand their plan, we might have a chance to stop it. But we have to be careful. Any wrong move could alert them to our presence." For the first time, survival became more than escaping the rebels. It became a mission to uncover the truth, to understand the forces that had destroyed her empire, and to protect those who still remained loyal. And Marcus, once merely a protector, now became a guide and partner in this larger struggle. Days turned into nights as they decoded fragments of transmissions, mapped patrol routes, and prepared for their next jump. Each challenge tested their patience, skill, and courage. The small shuttle became their lifeline, and their teamwork deepened. Zelira found herself relying on Marcus's judgment, while he began to respect her intelligence, intuition, and resilience. One evening, as the suns of the remote planet dipped below the horizon, Zelira spoke quietly. "I never thought I would say this, but I am glad you stayed. When everyone else abandoned me, you did not. That matters more than I can express." Marcus met her gaze, his eyes steady. "It was not hard to decide. You're alive. That's reason enough." For the first time in what felt like forever, Zelira smiled. A small but genuine gesture. In the middle of the galaxy's chaos, she had found an ally she could trust. Not because of power or status, but because of unwavering principle. And as the twin moons rose over the horizon, casting silver light across the rocky plains, she realized something else. Survival was no longer just about hiding or escaping. It was about preparing for what came next, for confronting the hidden forces behind the rebellion, and for reclaiming what had been lost. With Marcus held by her side, she felt ready, not just to survive, but to fight, to endure, and to reclaim her destiny. The journey through hostile stars was far from over, but for the first time in months, Zelira felt hope, and she knew that hope, combined with loyalty, courage, and determination, was more powerful than any fleet or weapon the galaxy could muster. The Empress and the human soldier looked out at the dark expanse before them, ready to face whatever challenges awaited. Together, they were no longer just survivors. They were the beginning of a new alliance, one that might one day restore what had been lost, and prove that even in the darkest times, humanity could shine. The small shuttle glided silently through the darkness of deep space, carrying Empress Zelira and Sergeant Marcus Hale farther from the ruins of her empire. The stars stretched endlessly around them, and every blinking light on the navigation panel reminded them how alone they truly were. Yet despite the isolation, there was purpose now, a mission. Survival was no longer enough. They had discovered hints of a larger scheme behind the rebellion that had destroyed the Velith Dominion, and the need to understand it became urgent. Marcus leaned back in his seat, analyzing the data collected from the remote planet. "These messages," he said slowly, "they're not just random communications. Someone is coordinating attacks across multiple star systems. Someone powerful, and they want chaos, not just your throne." Zelira's eyes narrowed. "A hidden enemy? How is this possible? I thought my empire's intelligence network was the strongest in this sector." "It was," Marcus admitted, "but even the strongest networks can be infiltrated. And sometimes the enemy is closer than you think, watching, waiting, manipulating." Zelira thought of her council, her generals, and the very soldiers who had abandoned her. Had they been pawns of this hidden force? Or were they simply weak, unable to resist promises of power or fear? Either way, the betrayal had left her vulnerable. Now, she would need more than courage to survive. She would need strategy. "We need to know who is behind this," she said, determination sharpening her voice. "If we can uncover them, perhaps we can stop the rebellion before it spreads further." Marcus nodded. "Agreed, but we need a base of operations. Somewhere safe to gather information and plan our next move. I know a few neutral systems that might work, planets with small, loyal populations who won't report us to the rebels." Zelira studied him. "And you trust these humans?" "I trust people who have proven themselves," Marcus said simply. "And I trust you." "That's enough." The journey was long. They traveled through uncharted sectors, avoiding patrols, skipping past heavily monitored jump gates, and taking risks that would have terrified most pilots. Zelira watched Marcus in awe, noting the calm precision with which he handled every challenge. He did not panic. He did not hesitate. Every decision he made was deliberate and thoughtful, and every choice kept her alive. Eventually, they reached a small, sparsely populated system. A single planet, covered in green plains and rolling hills, promised security. Marcus guided the shuttle to a hidden landing area in a secluded valley, where no one would notice their arrival. It was quiet, peaceful, and unremarkable, but that was exactly what made it perfect. "This will be our temporary base," Marcus said. "From here, we can intercept communications. track rebel movements, and try to find out who's really pulling the strings. Zelira stepped onto the planet's surface, taking a deep breath of the clean, thin air. For the first time in weeks, she felt a sense of calm. The rebellion had destroyed her palace, shattered her empire, and taken everything she thought she could rely on. Yet here, far from the chaos, there was an opportunity to fight back. Over the following days, they worked tirelessly. Marcus helped Zelira learn the technical skills needed to monitor communications, decrypt transmissions, and analyze patterns. Though the technology was human, she quickly grasped its purpose and potential. Her mind, trained in strategy and leadership, adapted faster than she had expected. Together, they began to see the outlines of a vast conspiracy. The evidence was clear. The coup against Zelira had been orchestrated by an external species, one that had long envied the Velith Dominion's control over trade routes and resources. They had secretly bribed, coerced, or manipulated key figures in her government, creating internal dissent that would destabilize the empire at the exact right moment. The rebellion that had seemed spontaneous was, in fact, a carefully planned attack designed to weaken the region and expand this enemy's influence. Zelira's jaw tightened. So all this time, I thought it was just betrayal from my people. But it was a trap, a calculated one. Marcus looked at her gravely. Exactly. And that means we can't fight blindly. We need proof, something undeniable that shows the rebellion is not just internal. Once we have that, we can rally the remaining loyalists. The plan was not easy. They would have to infiltrate stations controlled by the rebels, intercept communications, and gather evidence without being detected. Any mistake could mean capture or worse. But Zelira felt a renewed sense of purpose. She had been abandoned, left to die. Yet now she had the chance to fight back in a way her empire had never prepared her for. And beside her, Marcus would not allow failure. The first mission was risky. Using a stealth shuttle, they approached a rebel communication station on a small, unassuming moon. Marcus piloted the shuttle while Zelira studied the station's schematics. The installation was heavily guarded, but there were gaps in the patrol schedule opportunities they could exploit. Timing is everything. Marcus whispered, "We go and gather the data and leave before anyone knows we were here." Zelira nodded. "Understood." They infiltrated the station under cover of darkness, moving silently through the corridors. Zelira marveled at Marcus's skill. He could disable security systems, avoid cameras, and navigate unfamiliar territory as though he had been trained for years in this environment. She, too, contributed, using her knowledge of alien technology and protocol to bypass obstacles. Together, they were an effective team to minds, to species, united by a single goal. Inside the main control room, Zelira accessed the communication logs. Her eyes widened as she realized the full scope of the conspiracy. Rebel leaders were receiving instructions from shadowy figures across the galaxy, planning simultaneous attacks on multiple systems. Entire star clusters were at risk, and the chaos could spread far beyond her own empire. "This is bigger than I imagined," Zelira whispered. "It's not just about my throne. They want to control the entire region." Marcus nodded. "And now we have proof. If we can broadcast this to the remaining loyal systems, we can rally forces before it's too late." The mission was dangerous. As they prepared to leave, alarms blared. Someone had noticed irregular activity. Marcus acted quickly, guiding Zelira through a back corridor and out to the shuttle. Rebel guards pursued them, but the shuttle's stealth systems allowed them to escape undetected. Breathless and exhilarated, Zelira realized the truth. Survival was no longer enough. They had discovered the hidden enemy behind the rebellion, and with this knowledge, they had the power to turn the tide. That night, under the twin moons of their secluded planet, Zelira spoke quietly to Marcus. "I never imagined that in the darkest time, I would find an ally like you. You stood by me when everyone else ran. You taught me what it means to trust, to fight, and to survive." Marcus smiled faintly. "We make a good team, and if we keep working together, we can do more than survive. We can win." Zelira nodded, determination blazing in her eyes. "Then we will, not just for me, but for all the systems at risk." We will expose the enemy, rally the loyalists, and reclaim what has been lost. And we will do it together. Outside, the stars shone as if in agreement, distant suns lighting the path ahead. For the first time since the fall of her empire, Zelyra felt a surge of hope. The rebellion had not destroyed her completely. With knowledge, courage, and a human soldier who refused to abandon her, she now had the means to fight back. The journey through hostile stars was far from over. Danger still lurked in every shadow, and the forces behind the rebellion were vast and cunning. But for the first time, Zelyra understood a truth she had never fully realized. True strength came not from armies or fleets, but from loyalty, courage, and the willingness to stand when everyone else had turned away. And with Marcus Hale at her side, she knew that together, they could face whatever lay ahead no matter how impossible it seemed. The mission had changed them both. Zelyra was no longer just a dethroned empress. She was a strategist, a survivor, and a leader who understood the value of trust and partnership. Marcus was no longer just a soldier. He was a guardian, a guide, and the person who had shown her the meaning of true courage. As the shuttle glided silently above the alien world, the two allies prepared for the battles yet to come. The rebellion was only the beginning, and the hidden enemy behind it was still out there, weaving plans in the dark corners of the galaxy. But with knowledge, skill, and unbreakable loyalty, Zelyra and Marcus had the chance to change everything. And for the first time in a long while, the future felt possible. The small shuttle emerged from hyperspace into a distant star system. Empress Zelyra and Sergeant Marcus Hale sat in silence for a moment, the soft hum of the engines filling the cabin. The plan they had worked on for weeks was finally ready. Expose the hidden enemy behind the rebellion and rally the remaining loyalists. Across the Velith Dominion, the task was immense, but Zelyra felt a strength she had never known before, strength born not from fleets or armies, but from trust, courage, and the unwavering loyalty of the human soldier beside her. "We are close," Marcus said, pointing to the navigation panel. "The system ahead has a communications hub. If we can broadcast the evidence we collected, all the loyal systems will know the truth." Zelyra studied the display, her sharp mind calculating the risks. "And the rebels? They won't just let us broadcast freely." "No," Marcus admitted. "But that's why we have to act quickly. Once the broadcast starts, the loyalists will mobilize. It's our only chance to turn the tide." The shuttle descended to the planet's surface, a world largely untouched by the rebellion, its cities small but well organized. Marcus guided them to the communications hub, a low, unassuming building perched on a ridge overlooking a wide valley. From here, they could transmit their findings to every system still loyal to the Empress. As they approached, Zelyra's mind raced. She had spent years learning diplomacy, strategy, and leadership, but none of her training had prepared her for this moment. The empire she had known was gone. Her council had betrayed her, and yet now, armed with knowledge and determination, she was about to reclaim her place not through fear, but through truth. Marcus checked the hub's security systems. "We have about 30 minutes before patrols arrive." "That's all we need," Zelyra nodded. Together, they entered the building, moving quickly to the main control room. The consoles hummed with energy, data streams flowing across multiple screens. Marcus began uploading the files they had gathered from the rebel stations, carefully verifying each transmission. "This is it," he said. "Once this goes out, every loyal system will know the full story. The rebellion was orchestrated, not spontaneous. The true enemy is revealed." Zelyra placed her hands on the console, a surge of determination filling her. "We must succeed. This is the only chance to restore what was lost." The upload began, the progress bar slowly filling as their data spread across the galaxy. Zelyra watched the screens, noting which systems had received the evidence and which were still offline. She realized that this moment was more than just strategy. It was a test of faith, of courage, and of the power of truth. Suddenly, alarms blared. Rebel forces had detected the signal and were converging on the hub. Zelyra's heart raced, but Marcus's steady voice cut through the panic. "Stay calm. We can handle this." They moved quickly, activating defensive measures and preparing the hub's emergency protocols. Blaster fire began to echo outside, and the wall shook as the rebels tried to break in. Zalira felt a surge of fear, but it was tempered by determination. She would not be abandoned again. She would not let the Empire die without a fight. Marcus stood beside her, rifle ready, eyes scanning every entrance. We're not outnumbered if we stay smart. Remember what we practiced. With precise coordination, they defended the hub. Zalira managed the communications, keeping the upload running, while Marcus intercepted attackers and guided them into traps. Despite the chaos, their teamwork was flawless. The rebels were skilled, but they had underestimated the courage and ingenuity of a human soldier and the resolve of an alien Empress who refused to surrender. Minutes stretched like hours, but the broadcast continued, reaching every loyal system across the Velith Dominion. Slowly, reinforcements arrived, ships and soldiers who had remained loyal. Now emboldened by the proof of the hidden enemy, they engaged the rebels, turning the tide of the battle. Zalira and Marcus continued their defense, ensuring the data upload completed without interruption. Finally, the progress bar reached 100%. A wave of relief washed over Zalira. The truth was out. The Loyalists now knew who their true enemy was, and the rebellion began to crumble under the weight of exposure. Zalira stood, looking at Marcus with gratitude and admiration. "We did it. The galaxy knows the truth." Marcus smiled faintly. "We did it together. That's the important part." As the last rebel forces were pushed back, Zalira addressed the loyalists who had gathered. Her voice was clear and strong, carrying the authority of someone who had faced betrayal and survived. "Today, the truth has been revealed. My empire has been threatened, but we are not defeated. Those who sought to destroy us will no longer hide in the shadows. Together, we will rebuild, stronger than before. And humanity has shown me what loyalty, courage, and principle can accomplish." The loyalists cheered, inspired by her words and by the unexpected partnership that had made this victory possible. Zalira's heart swelled with pride, not just in herself, but in Marcus, and in the spirit of those who had chosen to stand by her when all others had turned away. In the days that followed, the rebellion continued to collapse. The external species that had manipulated events from afar was exposed, their influence weakened by the coordinated efforts of loyal systems. Zalira's leadership, combined with Marcus's guidance and human ingenuity, proved that even in the darkest times, courage and loyalty could change the course of history. Zalira began to rebuild her empire, not as it had been, but as it should have been: stronger, wiser, and guided by principles that valued truth and collaboration over fear and blind obedience. Humans became trusted allies, their skill, courage, and determination proving indispensable in the new order of the galaxy. Marcus, once a simple soldier, became her official envoy, traveling between human and Velith systems to ensure cooperation and mutual respect. Zalira and Marcus developed a partnership built on trust, loyalty, and shared experiences. A partnership that inspired countless others across the stars. One evening, as Zalira looked out over the capital from her restored palace, she reflected on the journey that had brought her here. Betrayal, loss, and danger had threatened to break her, but she had survived not because of power or armies, but because of the courage and loyalty of a human soldier who refused to leave her side. "Marcus," she said, turning to him, "you stayed when everyone else abandoned me. You risked everything, not for power or glory, but because it was the right thing to do. That is more valuable than any fleet or weapon." Marcus smiled. "It was not hard to decide. You were worth standing by. And besides, you would have done the same for me, I'm sure." Zalira laughed softly, the sound echoing through the quiet palace. "Perhaps, but I have learned that true strength is not measured by titles or armies, but by courage, loyalty, and the willingness to act when others hesitate." Together, they watched the stars beyond the palace windows, knowing that the galaxy remained vast and full of challenges. Yet for the first time in her life, Zalira did not feel fear. She had faced betrayal, survived impossible odds, and discovered the true meaning of loyalty. And with Marcus held by her side, she was ready for whatever came next. The Velith Dominion had been tested, and it had survived. Not by power alone, but by principle, by courage, and by the alliance between two unlikely allies, a human soldier and an alien empress. As the twin suns set over the capital, Zelira felt hope rise in her chest. The galaxy was vast, the challenges were many, but she knew this truth above all else: when loyalty stands strong, courage guides the way, and humans refuse to abandon those in need. Even the darkest rebellion can be overcome, and so, a new chapter began for the Velith Dominion, one built on trust, courage, and the enduring spirit of humanity. Together, Zelira and Marcus would lead the galaxy into a future brighter than any star, proving that even in the harshest times, hope, loyalty, and courage could triumph. The Empress and the human soldier had not only survived, they had forged a legacy that would shine across the stars for generations to come.